This week in our leadership theory class, we have been studying Chapter 4. In the previous chapter, we learned about trait theory and behavior theories of leadership, and now we are exploring contingency theories of leadership. Contingency is simply that. Situations change, and leadership styles need to change based on the contingencies, or the variables, most often followership, task, and organization. These theories and their related models may be prescriptive, providing a specific style of exactly what to do in a given situation, or they may be descriptive, identifying the variables and styles, but not explicitly determining which style a leader should use. In this presentation, we will look at 4 new theories and their associated models: contingency, continuum, path-goal, and substitute leadership theories. I will also share my current employer's leadership model and the leadership model that I most often subscribe to. This presentation is laid out so that there is some basic information to follow along with, and each model has a slide with a visual representation of the model. I hope you find this presentation useful as you continue to explore your own leadership path. The first theory that we're going to look at is a contingency theory of leadership. The contingency theory of leadership is defined as matching the leadership style to a situation. This was originally advanced by Fiedler in the late 1950s. According to Fiedler, there is no one best style of leadership, and a leader is effective when his or her style of leadership fits with the situation. In essence, Fiedler is saying that effective leaders do not change their style to fit a situation, but that leaders are matched to the situation based on their leadership style. If you're like me, you may be wondering, how does that work? Well, Fiedler introduced the least preferred coworker scale when he introduced the model. In order to apply the theory or the model, one must compute the least preferred coworker scale, or the LPC. The LPC score helps to define the leadership style and whether it is a correct match for the situation. Leaders with higher LPC scores are more people-centered and rely on their interpersonal skills and relationships to achieve goals. Leaders with lower LPC scores, on the other hand, tend to focus on tasks and positional power. If we think back to behavioral theories, we can see an interrelation between affiliators and high LPCs and achievers and lower LPCs. Once we understand a leader's LPC, it becomes evident where the leader will be more or less effective. The situation and contingencies are defined by the relationships of leaders to the follower, how tasks are structured, and how much power the leader actually has. Leaders should then be matched to roles that highlight their personal leadership styles. This chart is an example of the contingency model. If you look at the very first line, you'll see that when the leader-member relationship is good and the task is structured and the leader's positional power is strong, that requires a low LPC score to be an effective leader. In line 5, you'll see when the leader-member relationship is not good, but the task is still structured and the leader's position power is still strong, that requires somebody with a higher LPC. The second theory we're going to look at is the continuum theory of leadership. This theory was introduced by Tannenbaum and Schmidt in 1958. They proposed that leaders fall along a continuum of styles from autocratic to democratic, and that in practice, most leaders are somewhere in the middle of the continuum. Based on that theory, a model was developed to better determine where a leader falls along the continuum and explain the relationship between the leader and his or her subordinates. The model gives guidance on leadership styles from the most autocratic, where a leader has to tell people what to do, to the most democratic, where a leader is able to delegate tasks, with other styles in between, such as sells, consults, and shares. This helps the leader determine what level of authority or democracy should be used in a given situation. What it does not do, however, is define a situation or the contingencies or variables. This slide shows two visuals of the continuum theory of leadership. The top arrow is the actual continuum from left to right, from the most autocratic to the most democratic. The second part of the visual underneath is the entire spectrum from autocratic to democratic. What's interesting is you can see the relationship as the use of authority goes down, the area of freedom for the subordinates actually increases. And as the freedom of subordinates decreases, the level of authority increases. The third theory we'll look at is the path goal leadership theory. The path goal theory was developed by House in 1971. According to Lussier, Path theorized that employee performance and satisfaction go hand in hand with the leader's ability to choose from among four leadership styles: directive, supportive, consultative, or achievement oriented. And it is the job of the leader to clarify the goal and the path to achieve it so that employees know in which direction to go. It is also the responsibility of the leader to remove any obstacles that may impede an individual or a team from achieving their goal, and to incentivize employees as they meet milestones and benchmarks toward their goal. The top of the slide shows the four levels of leadership styles that are used in the path goal theory. Those styles are directive, supportive, consultative, and achievement oriented. Below those styles, you'll see the actual visual of the path goal theory and model, where we begin our path, we make sure that all of the obstacles are removed, we continue to incentivize our employees until we achieve our goal. The final leadership theory that we'll explore is the leadership substitutes theory. In 1978, Kerr and Germier put forth the theory that some situations actually prevent leaders from affecting employees, and that substitutes and neutralizers for leaderships make the role of leader either obsolete or it significantly limits the effectiveness of a leader. This is based on different contingencies, such as the level of experience of employees and ability, the structure of tasks, levels of motivation, the cohesiveness and collaborative spirits of the team, formalities of the organization, or even the logistics of an organization. When this happens, a leader must look to see if they can guide and support an employee, a team, a task, or the organization, and act to fill gaps in leadership. Much of the time, however, leadership is replaced by self-management, team-based management, and/or automation. This slide depicts when a leader becomes limited in their effectiveness or obsolete. As you can see in this slide, the leadership role is faded out and taken over by the characteristics of its followers, of the task, or of the organization. When you substitute or neutralize a leader, There are alternatives to leadership that come through, such as self-managed teams, independent employees, or automation. At my organization, for instance, leadership substitute theory is actually used. We have a strong administration, we have a school leader, and we have 3 assistant principals. Each assistant principal is assigned a facet of the school's environment. Departments, such as mine, are team-based, and although my position may qualify as a supervisory position, I serve as the logistical and programming hub of the department. I manage the daily operations, but positionally I have very limited power. I do not make hiring, firing, or evaluative decisions. I have authority to make some decisions and run the department in a way that is ethical, compliant, and friendly to stakeholders. The major decisions, goals, and objectives are always approved or come from lead administration. In reality, I appreciate that. I only have a limited leadership capacity, and I prefer working as a team member. That allows me to let others lead in situations when they have more expertise, more experience, and more time. However, my team sees me as their leader, and as such, I prescribe to a contingency leadership theory and model not discussed previously. I find that the normative theory of leadership is the most natural in my position. The normative theory, which was advanced by Vroom and Yetton in 1973 and redefined in 2000. The normative theory is built on rules and norms and moral and ethical principles. The model helps a leader determine how they should behave based on one of 2 decision trees, either a time-sensitive or developmentally sensitive. After asking a series of questions, it makes it easier to decide on the leadership style that should be fostered. Decide, consult individually, consult the group, facilitate, or delegate. When the task requires immediate action, I often decide and let the team know the decision that was made. That happens in many daily operational decision making. If I need to debrief on something or I need additional insight on something, I consult with a thought partner in my team for ideas and feedback. When we are considering new programming, evaluating existing programming, or a decision needs to be made that is going to impact the team or the department, I consult the entire team. Or sometimes I even facilitate meetings and allow the team to put forth recommendations, and I delegate meetings and professional development to members of the team all the time. Overall, I try to use one of the styles aside from decisions in as many of the instances as possible. By doing so, I ensure greater buy-in from my team members. I have a greater capacity for creativity and innovation because I'm able to tap the talent and creativity and innovation of my team, and I'm able to free up my time from micromanaging the department.